Hello and namaste. Good morning, Trumptopia. Hosted by the Incorrigible Mr Zeppo. Hey there, everybody. Why the title change? I'm just being a bit silly and spinning off a proper segment unto itself, specifically about my rants and raves and thinkings about the state of things in this country, which I now quite humorously refer to as Trumptopia. And I don't mean that with disrespect. Somebody recently... Hold on a second. I haven't used the system in a while, and I am having some technical difficulties. We're going to power through, though, and it's quite all right. Okay, where were we? Spinning off a proper segment where I focus just on the things I'd like to discuss about our political atmosphere. I realized that I had taken on the sort of pattern or habit of wanting to address those things during a segment which is really supposed to be about sharing pragmatic transcendental tips and, insight into what transcendentalist type thinking or lifestyle might be like. And it was sort of just, silly of me to not realize I needed to manage those topics differently. So just a little bit of, organizational play. But Good Morning Trumptopia is also meant to be specifically kind of vociferously about this subject, the madness that is going on in our White House. And before we delve in, let's be clear. I think I try to be direct and upfront about this when I post on my social media, but I realize that a lot of people are kind of tuning in and may not have consumed much of my social media postings and may not have context for which to assess where I'm coming from. And people often, then just sort of choose for themselves in their mind what they think my position is. I am not, I am sort of secular. I am sort of, in a way, apolitical, or almost, dare I say, anti-political. But not really, because I think it's a useful stepping stone towards a better system, the politics that we have now. I am all about reform, but I'm about reform that's actual reform. And more to the point, I am not a Trump supporter. Okay, so let's be really clear about that. And more specifically, and more importantly than that, that does not by default mean I'm a Hillary Clinton supporter or automatically a Democrat. I'm one of those people standing sort of in the middle, but also, I guess, simultaneously off to the sidelines, at least in the way people think of where my opinion lands on the spectrum of political constructs. But I'm sort of politely declining to participate for now because I think we're playing the game all wrong. I'm a conscientious, what's the term from I think it was from the Vietnam War era. A conscientious, not observer, a conscientious something. Forgive my loosey-goosey mad scientist brain. I can't quite remember the term. But it's out there. People probably already know what I'm talking about. And you can probably ask Siri to explain. So, here we are. All of us in this together. Stuck in this together, you guys. That's sort of one of the most important points from which I'd like to begin. Any of my projects here is about, public discourse. At the moment, the way I have to do it, because I have no collaborators that can join me in my little makeshift studio and have these discussions, counterpoint, eyeball to eyeball with me for your, entertainment. It's just sort of me going off on rants and, sometimes quite random sidebars and rabbit holes. But I'm hoping to be, kind of pleasantly listenable to at some point. I'm working up to it. And you're helping with your comments and your questions. So be sure, if you're already like a fan, you already been following me on Instagram or Facebook, step it up. If you like this podcast and you want your opinion or voice heard, because this is about the public discourse, like I said. It isn't just about me ranting and raving. I'm going to go to the social media portal of magic and draw out comments. And anybody who is offended by that, I apologize. The easiest solution is to no longer participate. If you comment on my Facebook page and then get butthurt that I read your comments, and I like to anonymize people. I just sort of use, first names, and I don't go in biting deep, I'm not trying to flame war anybody. I'm just, about sharing people's opinions. And I want to assert to this audience, any audience, whoever's listening, that I am actually a very open-minded listener. I may respond to you once I've heard you, but I'm very willing to hear, is my point. But I may respond to you with a sort of well, this is what I think is counterpoint to that, and why I think it is more in line with what's going on in the world. But the point is, we're supposed to be building consensus as a people, right? That's what community is. Whether you call it the United States of America, or you call it France, or you call it Trumptopia, or you call it the mad kingdom of King George. It doesn't matter. Whatever you want to name your society. The whole point of society is to build consensus around how to do stuff. And that might be part of the problem, friends. But let's not go down that rabbit hole right now. Let's zoom in on a feature of this new segment. By the way, for those of you who are tuning in for the very first time, don't know what I mean by segments, I'm trying to sort of build up momentum on this little podcast project. And I do apologize, by the way, for anybody paying attention and noticing large gaps of participation on my end. I don't produce any segments or any, don't post anything. I get sucked into, some important things in other places and other times and other dimensions that prohibit me from having enough time to gather my thoughts, around some topics so that I can then play and improvise. Because this is theater, by the way, folks. It's not really radio or podcasty. I'm just a guy improving monologues about stuff and hoping to be poignant. I'm not a comic necessarily, although I may be funny at times. I hope comedy helps advance understanding. Because if we can laugh about something, then we can wrap our brains around it better. It's no longer looming outside of us. or towering over us intellectually. But I digress. So, having said all that, let's put on some music and let's go to the social media. Disclaimer, this is all version as performed, I believe, and recorded by the once world famous, maybe not so much anymore, Scott Joplin. I'm gonna let it roll. Music is an amazing thing, friends, and we should not let great music from long ago eras be completely forgotten. It's a shame. How did that already pose? Okay, I'm having a strange glitch in the Matrix moment. I'm still recording this unless I somehow stop. No, I'm live. It's been going. I have 33 minutes left. And somehow there's already the post on Facebook about it, which confuses the living bejesus out of me. I don't know how the internet does that, but I'm literally looking at my Sprecher studio with, that song's still got 24 seconds. I'm live on Sprecher. No one's chatting, because I don't think anyone ever tunes in live on Sprecher. I don't do this regularly enough for people to know, oh, he's going to be on this Saturday, I'm going to go tune in and make a comment. That's not happening. But on Facebook, on my Facebook, which is kind of cool, because now I can actually read I've always I want to read the thing that I just wrote as my intro into the intro while I'm recording, but I can't do that because Sprecher's already whisked it away. But there it is. GM Trumptopia, Episode 1, Season 1. Is the honeymoon phase over yet? Spinning off a new segment of his verb diversifying. Wow, I can't type this early in the morning / afternoon. Podcast project. The Incorrigible Mr Zeppo reviews the first 100 days and looks forward to the next 3 years with pragmatic suggestions from beyond the political ideological spectrum. For those of you wanting me to get to that point right now, let me tell you, I'll just spill the beans and get to that really intense suggestion. And it's something that I shared with a friend of mine who, curiously, was the first person on the wall on my stream when I first opened the Facebook tab just then, before I clicked over to my own page, whose name now immediately brain farted right out of my head. But that's what the internet is, right? It's instant memory. Oh, now it's totally... Oh, there she is. Tanya. She, awesome human being, and local Facebook friend, which is kind of cool. Someone I had been hoping to warm up to asking to interview for some of this podcasting stuff that I do, but I'm not sure, because she posted something, I believe it was yesterday, and on my break or in between, free moments at work, I made a few comments back, especially right after. Yeah, it was right towards the end of the day, and I always hope, my friends and listeners, that when I post things on the interwebs, or when I say them in my podcast, I don't sound like a complete insane person, or like an anger ball, because I'm not. One of my problems, I want to own up to you right now, is that, I'm a foreigner. I'm a foreign alien, okay? People are asking themselves right now, there's a group of people asking themselves, does he mean from another planet? And no, not necessarily another planet, because all planets are kind of the same place. They're just different fractal iterations of the same process. But most people won't wrap their brains around that concept for another couple of decades. But we're, myself and some other associates of mine are trying to help wake up that awareness that the planet's not a place. It's part of a being. It's a procedure inside a being, a living being. Just like, Your stomach is not a place. Although things live in your stomach that might confuse your stomach for a place instead of a living person. More on that in the almost daily Zencast segments. Less about that here in Good Morning Trumptopia. Good Morning Trumptopia. What's the point? What's my pragmatic, out of the political spectrum suggestion? And it's simply this. One of my core statements to my dear Facebook friend, that I did not mean to offend in any way, shape, or form, I hope I didn't, is this. And I'm like paraphrasing and merging everything that I said, which included a quote from Einstein, which I don't know if I got correct or not, because I was I was not copying and pasting that quote. I was trying to drag it out of my scrambled egg memory. But we can't solve any of the problems that we as a species, let's no longer think so locally that we're concerned about party politics at the state and federal level over what's going on to our planet and us as an entire network of living organism. We forget to think that way. We need to think globally and act, or think as an organism. Consider what's going on with our organism, the way we do other species in a sort of objectifying way. We can't solve politics with more politics. It won't work. The entirety of the history of politics is proof of that. If politics truly solved anything, you'd think by now we literally live in the future. We are building the army of robots that's probably going to either liberate us from ourselves, hopefully. That's one version of the future we could be voting for with our brains, but we're not, because we're letting fear dictate what we vote, remember? Because even in Trumptopia segments, I got to be a little bit transcendental. If you want to hear a great explanation about what I mean by that, go dig. There's a whole episode about it. And I'm sure I'll do a whole other episode about it soon. But back to politics, and back to this really specific place that we've gotten to. It's funny, I was supposed to go read things off the internet and I haven't read dick. Okay. But my really pragmatic suggestion is to stop arguing. That's first. And then it's got nothing to do with any party, other than to do with the simple truth that every ideological construct that we embrace and cling to in our minds then filters our thinking and our actions and our behavior in this realm we call reality. And that includes our opinions, which are ideological constructs, about politics and which politicians are good or bad, and what our theories are about what they're really up to, what's really going on. Ultimately, as individuals, the vast majority of us in Trumptopian society have no bloody fucking clue what's going on, really. And those that do probably aren't telling us the whole truth and nothing but the truth, my friends. As I pointed out to you before, and I'll point out to you again, of course Russia is a ruse. Of course Jeff Sessions himself and his abdication of himself from investigations and handlings and proceedings of what's going on is a ruse. Donald Trump is a ruse. They're all deadly real ruses, though. And the ruse roulette fucking rabbit hole of crazy gets really, really, really deep. And you don't have to even look at conspiracy theory side of things. But hey, congratulations to all you conspiracy theorists out there that had some, line of conspiracy that was really close. And here's my point. All of those things, even the conspiracy theories, even the opinions of what is or what is not going on, that keep us divided, that keep us going, oh, well, my version of the explanation of reality is more valid than anybody else's. That's the fundamental problem. That's the problem we need to actually be addressing. It's got nothing to do with Donald Trump as an individual or as a puppet or as a politician or whether or not he's being controlled or manipulated by the Russians. He may be just another billionaire trying to be a dick billionaire, just like all the other billionaires generally tend to do, because even in America, billionaires are rich people who want power and control and more of everything. Because that's the fundamental problem with ego. Ego doesn't give two shits about your politics. And ego is everyone, as naturally as everyone is the divine thing that we're all trying to go find or disprove. All right? That's what's really at stake here. My dear friends in Trumptopia, we can keep getting mired in the daily fight to either, to either oppress or liberate ourselves, or we can get on to the really bigger fish to fry, which, as I was trying to explain to my very hyper-political friend, and there's nothing wrong with that. We still have to care about those things, and we still have to make decisions about those things. But before, as who was it? Rastafarian. I'm a person who, for most of his life, once was told, "Oh, you're so bad at remembering names," and I just kept telling myself that I am really bad at remembering names. And I think I made myself really bad at remembering names. That's one of the ways in which ego seduces us into believing things that are, in fact, only limiting boundaries to what we are capable of. Like the belief, oh, I like the idea of yoga, but I could never do it because, etc., 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 etc. That's just a limiting boundary belief. Just like the belief, oh, I'd love to solve the healthcare problem, but it'll never happen because, etc., etc., etc. And those may be very valid sounding points, but the real issue is not whether or not those points are valid or whether or not those reasons are really at play. It's that you've already chosen to believe that it is not possible. And my friends, as the banner at the top of my Facebook page boldly declares right now, belief manifests. So be very careful what you choose to believe. If you want to believe that war with X country or this country or North Korea or the Assad regime is inevitable, then you are voting for its inevitability in your universe and in the collective foam framework of the shared experience that we confuse for a solid state. It's not, like we all live in our own fractal tunnel, hologram, like probability waveform of like a reiteration of the entire shared cosmos. So belief is one of the most abused, misunderstood, and powerful magics, like actual magic, in the ye old ancient times kind of way, or in the spiritual mystic kind of way, that it deeply influences your inner world, slowly but surely, those things that you believe, whether you understand that you're choosing to believe them or not. There's overt conscious choice beliefs, which we then sometimes build subversive, unconscious anti-beliefs around, and we can fuck ourselves getting down the rabbit hole of how belief structures in our minds work. And it's a whole area of study that we sort of lack a very real science about, because we always sort of whisk belief away as some fanciful, nonsensical thing that adds up to mostly nothing, because it is true. You can believe things that will never manifest. And there's sort of just like there are subtle and discernible, consistent things or phenomena we might call rules in the physical realm, and light behaves a certain way and consistently can be measured to behave that certain way. I know there's a lot of confusion out there right now about what is and what is not true, what is fake news, what is real science, what is fake science. And there's whole blocks of people that think the entirety of science is all nonsense, just like there are huge swaths of population that believe the entirety of all religious texts is all pure nonsense. The fact of the matter is, my friends, we don't live in any absolute state of any of those things, because each of our own little universes sort of is trying to manifest. It's contributing the truthiness of us believing what we believe to the local collective, a neighborhood of our intercrossing realities. Each of us as an individual is intrinsically interconnected with the rest of reality by this sort of network of probability wave function fractal tunnels of manifesting. And when we just sort of live through them by default at the lowest default settings, we're usually taking in the manifestating sort of dictates of the much more powerful choices being made around us of belief. But we can, with an active, I'm sorry, so like riding the edge between talking about just the crazy politics and events of Trumptopia and over what I want to be talking about in the Daily Zen episode segment stuff. But to zoom back to our politics of today, what can be done at a really pragmatic level is to start with the simple realization that our politics, as it is operated now in our history, and as we're observing, the real or fake news of it being hijacked over in France, we can keep beating our heads about it, or we can stop arguing and agree that as a species, as a family of people, because we're all related, there's no such thing as otherness, even at the purely materialist level. I know that people want to debunk science left and right, but I'm pretty satisfied with what I've read about, accepted mainline genomics and the study thereof. This stuff is measurable and consistent and can be repeated. And if I know there's a cost prohibitive factor, but if you had the same equipment, you could do the same science yourself. That's sort of the awesome part about science, is that barring the entry cost of the equipment. And that's what's awesome about meditation. Here we go, talking about Zen stuff over here in the political side. But it applies to our politics, and it applies to our resistance to those in power or in control of our political structures right now. The great thing about Trumptopia, or America as it used to be known, is that it really is trying to be, or at least pretending to try to be, a sort of self-governance of the people, by the people, for the people. And that means we all, as individuals, have to take responsibility for what we are or are not doing in that process. And there's a validity to non-participatory protest action. Like, I'm not going to vote because blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. And that's all great, and I applaud it. There's also a significance to grassroots organizing around who to vote for. And there's a layer that people are waking up to finally, and that's participatory action at the grassroots network level of who to nominate. If we're just voting on choices, and I know, I get it, I'm not against those who don't vote. I'm officially, actually, as far as what I'm doing right now, I'm being so nonpartisan as to, like, also I'm not allowed to vote for a couple of different reasons. And that's a whole other episode. And I'll leave it dangling there as a mystery. But it's not because of any criminal reason. I'll tell you that. For those of you who want to get angry at me, it's not. It's just the state of affairs. By perfectly normal, perfectly great, I'm, not in violation of any legal thing. I'm pro a civilized society of order, and I try to stick to it. But I also am pro reform, and that's what I really trying to share. And that's that if we're going to get involved in reform or in resistance, or in change, we need to have that revolution in our minds first. It's been stated many times, many ways, by many famous and not so famous people. In order for a true revolution to happen in the streets, in real life, in our politics, we must have a revolution of our minds. And I would add our hearts. And I would add that which some of us choose to call our souls. And as some of you who have been real adamant listeners might recall, that's what I am positing is Donald Trump's sort of job in the cosmos today, and why he's in his office, and why I wouldn't be surprised in the least if over in France, after their election, despite their big media blackout as an attempt to sort of prevent crazy shit in the news from influencing last-minute voting decisions, or whatever the rationale is there, I wouldn't be surprised if Le Pen mysteriously won, or surprisingly with a surge, or cynically with a political maneuvering such as they don't have a electoral college thing, do they? Or do they have some obscure other? They probably do. I'm not super up on my French political, machinations. Ways you can game the system in France is not a class I took lately. I'm sure there are people with all kinds of brushed up, recently Googled data on how the French electoral cycle really works and what may or may not be happening right now. But there is, of course, reporting going on here in Trumptopia land that, and probably in other countries. It's kind of hard to tell because we can't watch everybody's news simultaneously all the time. We can't watch news all the time, period. We can't even trust the news, right? Like, don't come at me with the, hey, the news is corrupt tip. I got that. I just don't think it's as absolutely corrupt as everyone sometimes gets paranoid about. I think that there may be some cool, honest people trying to really bring to us some stuff and sort of being wink, wink, nudge, nudge. It's all part of the ruse. Why do sometimes we get these amazing real stories that turn out to be really true? Like, I have to say, the kinds of things that Rachel Maddow has broken, like the horrible, 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 horrible toxic situation in Flint, Michigan, which, by the way, 3 years have gone by on since she broke that story? And while all the hubbub and there's been a few protests, I don't think anything's been done about the pipes. One of the ugliest, scariest things about what we're, waking up to our reality, friends, is that it doesn't really matter who is in the White House. We kind of have always been Trumptopia. And that's my, weird outside of the box. Perfectly, for those of you who don't know, I am an immigrant. My parents brought me here legally with a big corporation, with an awesome shiny job, and we paid our taxes and we paid our fees and we stood in line and we waited and we suffered and we were scrutinized and we were given a little bit of, suspicious, because we're Mexicans that don't look Mexican at all. We kind of look like Spaniards. We kind of look we look Greco-Roman. So, as I've mentioned or talked about briefly at other times, I get a lot of assumptions thrown at me based on what I look like, depending on what I look like that day, depending on what my haircut, my hairstyle. People can see two pictures of me doing the same thing, sitting around or walking somewhere or just, with some friends. But if I have long, crazy hair, or if I have short, curly hair, or if I have short, super straight hair, people won't recognize me. It's really funny. Anyways, what's the point of that? I am here in a non-participatory way to sort of observe and comment on our politics because we are literally, as Bernie helped instigate, whether or not he's able to continue with the waking up and the revolution, it's really happening. We are having a consciousness revolution as Americans, as people in this country. And so are others in other countries, my friends. And the evidence is scattered all about that we can make this revolution about consciousness and about how deeply we clearly truly perceive and understand our shared reality or plurality of realities. Because as the old saying goes, there's as many opinions and politics and religions as there are assholes. And everyone's got an asshole. Did I just make up that saying? Did I just clobber 5 sayings together to make one new saying? Is this all part of a bit that I'm going to put in a book? Absolutely. Because I'm also, my sort of meta self-referential fiction, which is super slow going, folks, in terms of, I know, I haven't put anything out very much in this new year. The first quarter of this year was kind of, I meant to put out a couple of things a month, and I've got, why am I off on this tangent? Oh, because I appreciate and applaud those fans over there on Wattpad who have been checking in and reading and occasionally dropping comments. And I encourage the crossover. If you're a fan who's, from Instagram that's suddenly finally checking out my podcast, go check out my fiction and drop me your 2 cents. I know it's crude. I know it's totally not finished. I know it's totally just gotten started. And I know it feels like, he's stalled out, not going anywhere. The wheels are still turning on that, just very gentle and slow. Sometimes things need to other things need to take focus, right? And so ideas go into slow hibernation development mode. And that's just true about us as people. And it's true about us as a species. So let me drop some truth bombs on you. Trump is a mirror. And I think I've already done a whole episode on this, but I want to bring this now to the forefront of this new segment because it has to be, for those who are just joining now and pick this segment as their first thing to check out to try and binge watch or binge listen to. This has got to be on the front lines of our new thinking. There's ancient wisdom that comes from us, from deep, deep thinking and deep meditators who went places in their minds, behind their minds, beyond opinion, beyond political ideology, beyond religious ideology, beyond that which we cling to. And why is that important? Why do I keep always pointing in that direction in anything that I try to share publicly? Because that's where we see truth clearly. To quote Rumi, well, I know some people might get defensive about that because he's from Middle Eastern history, but Rumi really puts it plainly. There's a place there beyond everything else, and there resides the true things about the universe. Let's meet there. Meditation, any kind of meditation, and other practices, good health, good exercise, having a loving, compassionate relationship with your family. And guess what, folks? Your family includes your environment. From where you choose to live, how that environment, housing was built, whether or not the neighborhood you're in is healthy for you and your children. That's why I brought up Flint. This is America, folks. Well, or for those who love Trumptopia, this is Trumptopia, folks. And more importantly, we live in the future. We're building the robots that are going to either live. Oh, I'm repeating myself. How can we not fix something like what happened in Flint? It's been 3 years. How can we not have already fixed it? Fixed it good. The first lady and the first super cute, kid, young boy, which America is always fascinated with, the whole world's always fascinated with kings and queens and the prince and princesses of their, oligarchic corporate oppressors. We're always in love with them. And just because we use different labels nowadays, they're doing the same job, folks. And these two people, and I'm not trying to criticize them, I'm just pointing out a fact. They literally live in a gilded fucking mansion built up in a giant tower. Gilded, and for those who don't know what that means, it's covered in gold. Covered in gold. And yeah, there's a lot of people who are like, woo, rock on, he did it, I can do it. It's great. America's number one. We're the best. You can live in a gilded cage if you want to. That's great. But think about all the programs that are going to be cut or have been cut or already, they didn't even need to cut things. They just failed to staff whole departments. All right, I need to start wrapping up for our first break. This is going to be the first of what I hope to do on a more regular basis, sort of like a marathon day. I'm going to do 45-minute segments, a minimum of 3 throughout the rest of the day. And I'm also going to try to diversify it by having, touching base on the various different themes in my little project here. But let's. We went to Facebook, and I barely even read any comments, and I'm totally running out of time. I got 4 minutes and 20 seconds left, so let's leave it at this cliffhanger. What can we really do next about where we're at? We can stop fighting amongst ourselves about which thing is right, and we can start seeing things clearly. And the simplest, most powerful way to do that, to achieve that together, is to start meditating. And I know that sounds stupid to people, but I know that to a lot of you who are listening, you're like kind of going, yeah, duh, how come we're not talking about that? Why isn't that on the news? Why isn't that something that all of our kids do in school? It's not about being from any one particular religion. People are freaked out by meditation often because it seems foreign. It comes from other cultures. Let me break some fucking news on you folks. Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, Confucius, Mithra, Abraham, just to get the big ones that we already know. And a long list of everybody else that are credited or attributed to being the founders through prophecy of some religion or another, something humanity seems to have been doing over and over and over and over again for millennia upon millennia, probably lost, iterations, just completely buried and lost to time. But when they're real, when a real person stands up and says, hey, whoa, everybody, we're not living from a heart-centered place, with love and compassion at the center of the fabric of our society. We're just pretending to a little bit. They teach meditation. You've probably seen this meme floating around. I know I've reshared various versions, reposted by various other people in my networks on that social medias. But Jesus wasn't a Christian. Shocking news in this Christian madness of Trumptopiaville. But Buddha wasn't a Buddhist, and Muhammad wasn't an Islamist. They were awakened ones. They were loving human beings who realized through meditation that love really is the answer, and that taking care of each other and healing each other is, duh. Stay tuned, folks. I'm going to come back at you with comments, actual comments from social media. And if anybody's dropped any questions in my email, Incorrigible Mr Zeppo at gmail.com, I'm going to go through those and talk back at you. Because this whole experience is supposed to be dialogue. So hit me up. Oh, and as always, my friends, I'm not asking you to believe what I'm saying. I'm inviting you to go do your own research and figure it out for yourself. Real research. Google searches on page 1 don't count for dick. You're getting whatever bias kick back at yourself, however you phrase your search engine. And whatever bias is already trending on your search engine, because that shit gets tracked. Yo. Alright. I'll be coming back at you live on Sprecher, and of course, just sort of forever on YouTube. Peace, love, and grooviness be with you. Thanks for listening, and namaste.